Welcome back to the Lost Info Podcast. As always, it's keeping you awake, Jake.
And believe in Steven.
How we doing today?
Yeah, we're doing,
Yeah, I hear you. A lot going on in our worlds, I guess, like everybody else. We can sympathize. Try not to be too scatterbrained on this one. I got some things I got to go do after this, but we did do a number one, a simulation. That's the case file, by the way. Simulation 2, but we decided to do this one again. It was just a few things that we were going to touch on. We're going to fill this one in. A lot of it comes to things being tied back to one another. So, I mean, like we did Blue Beam, and then, they're talking about a metaverse. They're talking about holographic, all computer wise. And then, kind of simulation kind of ties into the Mandela Effect that I'll talk about, which I want to do one on the Mandela Effect, but we're going to try to split some things up. Maybe do a little bit of a different one, the next one, because I know after a while it's like, all right.
It seems like all conspiracies.
Yeah.
Some greater conspiracy that we're either not finding or we're just not announcing to the world. I can't.
So maybe the next one we'll actually do one on maybe a location and a civilization or something. If you'd like to make that request, the Lost Info Podcast @gmail.com. That would help us out. See what you guys want. But maybe we'll do one like on past civilization, just pick one like the Mayans or something like that, or something that just kind of you can learn a bit of knowledge,
kind of do a little sidebar from the
the
main
from the doom and gloom.
Yeah,
for sure. Again, we have a lot of things going on right now. I'm working on the website. Like I had said, you can go there now. You can kind of see that the first page is it's there. Just so you have a landing page, but we'll have everything out. There'll be the link to the store. Again, for now, it would be just helpful if you subscribe or give us a 5-star rating or a 3-star rating or whatever you think we deserve, I guess. 5 stars help us out. And then if not, when the store gets done, you can just go and buy a product or a service. And then we don't have to rope you into Patreon and do all that stuff. You can just get the content for free and go get whatever you need, and it helps us out. I think it's a better platform for everybody that way. You get something for your purchase, and then all of the good content you like is just free. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into the case file simulation 2. And this it's just weird because I know we talked about a lot of things before on the one. I actually didn't go back and even listen to one, but I believe that I talked about Plato in it. And that was kind of where there's been a lot of philosophers and a lot of great minds that have kind of came to the conclusion that we just don't know everything. Obviously, the lost info, but Plato had talked about if you were in a cave, and like I guess the situation was basically when you see shadows on the cave wall, that you think that something's in the cave with you. However, not knowing the outside of the cave is projecting those shadows into the cave changes your perception, meaning that once you know what's outside of the cave, kind of changes your reality in the cave. And that, again, obviously we didn't have computers back in Plato's time, or at least we didn't know if we did. But that's just basically saying that your reality is altered when you know more of the information. And then there was another.
So true.
Yeah. So true. And there was another guy too. Well, that was Nick Bostrom, and there was
Bostrom.
Yeah. Then there was another guy that I thought would be. Oh, by the way, Nick Bostrom. Don't search that guy. Check him out. Plato. Everybody's probably heard of him, but he has a lot of interesting things to say. It was Philip K. Dick, and he has pretty far out stuff. And that was he basically goes into a lot of the whole we just don't know what we're in. I don't know if he was even really meaning a simulation in his time, but he was just saying the reality in itself is completely different than what you think it is, because we're missing so much information that would make the perception alter it. And again, we were talking about before we even started, I was just kind of, and I'm still kind of confused on this. So I'm not a genius or nothing like that. So look into the double slit experiment. We talked about that in part 1, but I went farther in it, and it's just like, I don't know. I'm kind of like stuck. Like, why do we even try to put things in these categories like this can't be real or can be? Because in the slit experiment, as they went farther and it was redone, meaning that you're sending these electrons through these slits that are recorded, and they go through as waves until they're perceived or, observed rather by a conscious being, then they alter themselves into particles. Well, you can go and look it up for yourself, because I had to rewind and go back and, to try to explain it from my point of view. It's not going to help you. We'll just put it that way. But the main part of this being that you're sending these electrons through these slits, and then, they're acting one way when they're not observed, and then they're changing when they are observed. But then when this experiment was redone, basically they had moved a farther gap in between, and they were shooting these electrons through the slits and then observing them after they had went through the slits. But then that part, or that electron, would go back as a wave in transition time, basically transverse time, go back and change itself to a particle before it went through the slits, and then everything thereafter while it's observed. So there's a bit of like, the time and space thing, that, everything's happening at the same moment. Time, future, past, present is all happening, and we just don't understand because we're on a lineal time. Well, this proves all of our physics and things that we know, and goes back and changes itself after being observed and knows it, and then has to go back and change its whole process or path prior to. So it's like, I was kind of like, well, that's fucking crazy. So it blew my mind.
That's one version of a simulated reality. You'd also have to take into consideration that.
Well, I don't know if that's just that. I don't know. That just, to me, that just plays into simulated. That doesn't mean anything about simulation, I don't think. It's just that when you talk about the observing,
yeah, you're showing kind of like flaws.
Basically. Well, yeah, the system has something going on. Well, that would be like, and so the only way I can compare that, we might as well just go into that part, but real quick, and then I don't want to cut you off, but so basically what I was thinking was, how I tied that in is that if you're playing a video game, and everybody fucking knows Grand Theft Auto, so let's just use it. But if you're downtown and you're watching, these things happen, like on the street, somebody's getting robbed and whatever else, up in the mountains is there, but it's not being processed and used because you're not observing it yet. So if you could observe both places at the same time, well, then that's also processing it, and it's happening. But until you're there, that doesn't work, so like cars coming from the horizon and whatever else, nothing's happening in that part of the world until you're into that part of the map. And then it starts to happen, and that's because you're observing it. So that's the part that ties into the simulation to me, is that's pretty weird, because that's how video games work, is the observation changes the reality. So that's the only part that I kind of tie it into. The other part was just that I wanted to talk about. It was just because I was like, this is fucking crazy. Like it just doesn't make much sense. Like, and again, the farther you go down these rabbit holes, like you just can't unsee, or, and that's a proven experiment. It's not a theory. So it's like, you just can't unsee it, and you can't unhear it once, that's, as far as we have our science, that's what we have. And it's like, all right, so everything that we were taught has laws. They can be broken.
That's one version of a simulated reality. That'd be more like a matrix simulated reality, where there's also the simulated reality that there's a control method to our entire existence. So, but for that, in order for that to work, you really got to look into, unseen sources or natures, like maybe spirits or ghosts and such things. You basically have to look into that. But we do see that a lot in our world, that there is definitely a controlled aspect. So in one form or another, we are living in some kind of simulation.
Right. But I don't want to be, so we had a fan that likes the show. He's actually commented a lot of things. Shout out to you, it's Jazz or whatever. But so, and I'm going to go into religion. I don't want to pick on religions, but unfortunately they're a fabric of this reality. And so, even if you believe in a God, it's still kind of a simulation. I mean, if God created everything and whatever else, whether we have free will in it or not, you still have, like, even in a free roam game, you have free will, but that would be his simulation to us. So, even if you look at it in not a technological way, I mean, even if you have a God and a religion and this is the world that God created for you, I mean, he's the programmer, he's the creator. So, I mean, you can look at it however you want. There's many ways to take the simulation. It doesn't just have to be, we're living in a video game. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. Now it's fun to think about, I guess. There's a possibility. The Matrix, I love the whole series. Actually, Matrix 1 is in my top 5 movies. And it was just a weird way to look at things. Like, I mean, it would suck if that was the real reality, that you rip out of this pod and they're basically just harvesting your brain for energy. So they're making you believe you live in this world in order to suck all your personal energy out. That would be kind of to power an AI or whatever else. Right. That'd be a disturbing reality. But I mean, the movie itself just makes you think, and it gets outside the box. And that's kind of that's really what podcasts is, what everything is. If we can't just even expand the thought to it, now you don't have to believe it. You just have to open the conversation. And then, the expansion of thought is what helps us become more evolved and better, thinking things through and logically looking at things, so it's more of the conversation. You don't have to believe in anything certain. Obviously, you can believe whatever you want, and that's kind of the purpose and this global discussion. So, I mean, hit us up, the lostinfopodcast@gmail.com. Be a part of it. Tell us what you think on your simulation or your theory of a simulation. We're going to get a phone here soon enough where people can call in, because I think that'd be fun. I think it'd be
interesting to hear from multiple people as these conversations were going on. Yeah. It'd bring a little bit more life to the table, to say the least, just to get more opinions out there, because it's basically just us going back and forth. But
well, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just trying to bring you what we found to you. I mean, in the beginning, but
it's just interesting to
hear it would
the
be
outside point of view.
It would, definitely be better if if you guys took a part in it and and had your theories and whatever else too,
outside of us catching up with your comments and such.
Yeah,
and such,
Yeah, I mean, and then that's another thing is like, if you came on, you could actually tell your point of view, because like when you say a comment and like, and I'm not going to say anything because I like the guy, but I mean, I didn't mean anything about anybody's religion, so it's like, I don't know how you took that, but yeah, I mean, I think religion's definitely used to control people. I don't think that there's anything wrong with believing in God or whatever, but I would be weary of the people that are using it, organized religion. And I mean, you should be, leery of anybody that's using anything to sway your thoughts, our media, our governments. I mean, not just religions. So even us, I mean, you should question everything we say and go look it up for yourself. So, I mean, you should question everything. And that's kind of the whole purpose, is if we don't start questioning things, we'll just pretty much follow anything. That's not good.
It's true.
But so anyway, let's go into this. Okay. So one part that I found kind of interesting is that in the simulation, you come across different theories and possibilities. The Mandela Effect. We've all heard about it. I really want to do one on it. I just don't want to anytime like real soon. There's so much stuff going on right now. It's just a really weird topic, because it's like, is this mass confusion? Is this, we don't remember this right? I know for a fact in certain scenarios that there's a lie happening and I don't know why. Or
I think mostly I think that conspiracy is strictly internet. I really do. That's my theory on it.
I know. And that's the thing is, but I know, so personally, I know that I've watched Sinbad play that fucking genie in Shazam.
I am telling you that.
No, I watched the movie many times. I liked the movie, and I even know who the kid actor was, which was that Jonathan Bantis or whatever his name is.
And I remember the argument completely different. I remember the argument being that Sinbad was playing in Shazam. So as you can tell, the struggle still continues.
Well, there is definitely a lot of confusion, but the ultimate thing on that one is that Shazam with Sinbad never happened. It like never existed, never happened. I watched the movie, so I don't know what we're missing here, because I liked that one better than I liked Kazam, and you can't get the two mixed up. Shaq and Sinbad look way different. They're two different fucking people, and Shaq's not a good actor. Sinbad is a little bit better. I mean, it was still a corny movie, but I liked it. So I'm like, I don't know what we're missing here, because I watched both, and I liked the Sinbad one better. So I don't know. And again, the confusion out there is that it never even existed. It never took place. I'm like, and somebody tapped into my fucking head and put a memory that many times, because I watched it. I sat there and watched with my brother, so I'm like, I don't know.
And we'll get into that when we cover the Mandela
Yeah.
effect.
So
Simulated
but
reality.
anyway, let's just tie it into the simulation, that it's something that's altered and obviously talked about enough. I mean, it started with Mandela. And so basically a lot of people remember him dying in the 80s, and that there was a funeral procession, and that his wife gave that really heartfelt speech or whatever else. And then, happened that he didn't die until whatever it was, 2008, 2013, whatever it was. Pound search that for yourself. I don't remember. But that's where that first thing came on the memory of. And then they were like, no, this guy never died. Then he's still alive. And then everybody's like, but I remember the funeral for him. So I don't know. Did it happen? I don't remember that part. I don't remember that one. But that was the first example. Then people started saying, I mean, it kind of started the craze. But then there was a lot of people that remembered one thing, Luke, I am your father. And now it's supposedly, no, I am your father in Star Wars. So I remember Luke, but apparently he never said that. But then in an interview,
it was Tommy Boy. That's where you're remembering that from. I swear.
Luke?
It's the line, Luke, I am your father, was Chris
in the
Farley
fan.
Into the Fan.
Oh yeah.
Tommy Boy.
I actually remembered it in the other movie. Actually, what is his name? Charles Jr. or whatever that does the voice. He was on an interview and they're talking about that iconic line. And he even says, like, I think he said he'd just mad or freestyled it and he came up with that or something. I don't remember the interview.
The voice of who?
Darth Vader.
James Earl Jones?
James Earl Jones, yeah. That's what
okay.
I said.
Yeah, you said.
Did I say something junior?
Yeah, something junior, and I got a little lost there.
Yeah, Earl Jones. That's what I meant. Yeah. Anyway, the Darth Vader voice. But he was in this interview, and I told you I was going to be scatterbrained today. I got a lot going on, but
it's been an off day.
Yeah. But yeah, he had said something about it in an interview, but apparently he never said Luke. It was, no, I'm your father. And I don't ever remember it that way. And yeah, I do remember the Chris Farley one too, because that Luke. Yeah. But then again, so did Chris Farley remember it wrong too? Or did the writers?
Yeah, I would imagine that was just a spur of the moment, tip off in that movie.
But how would it be exactly what everybody else remembers?
Well, no, that's the thing. Just real quick, a lot of those movies, when they're making those actors are in rooms and they're just messing around and they're on camera.
Okay, but he would have been like, dude, I'm your father. But he says Luke, which is the word that supposedly is replaced.
He could have been in there just having a good time, and they were like, we're keeping it in the movie. Like,
well, yeah, but I mean, him saying Luke is the whole premise.
Copyright infringement.
Is the Luke and the no, or the two that were switched, and everybody remembers it different. So again, so could it be a glitch in the matrix, a glitch in the system that is like, when you in a game and all of a sudden this car like repeats itself back and forth or whatever, a little glitch in the matrix. I started looking into it, and I think that there's a little bit more to it. I think like in our episode of CERN, we find out that in 2008, and this is when you get all of these Mandela effects, is really the memory is all through the 2000s, basically through 2000 to 2012 is where all these different things happen. So in 2008, they were trying to find that Higgs boson and doing experiments and whatever else. And the Higgs boson was technically a quark or whatever else in the subatomic reality that all the rules don't apply to, and they completely change everything. It's another dimension. Just like in Ant-Man, Ant-Man goes down to the subatomic and then everything changes, time, space, everything's different. Well, that's what they were trying to find with the Higgs boson in 2008. And then in 2012, they proved that it was real. So in that time frame on those experiments, they might have altered our reality and switched us into another one or whatever else, or created the glitch in the matrix, or there was just a glitch in the matrix and the CERN was just the cover story. I don't know. There's a lot to think about, a lot to take in. This one, again, you can sit here and go all different ways. You can blow your minds each way you want to go. I mean, it doesn't matter how you want to get your mind melted. You can take a path, and then if you just keep going down it and just consider it, maybe it is this way, maybe it isn't. Like, you can melt your mind any way you want. So we take into, account like different things like deja vu, also maybe a glitch in the matrix. There's reincarnation, which could be like, let's just say the player of the game or the player of you or whoever's got the remote control in their hand
See, now that's more simulated reality other than the Matrix. See, the Matrix
Yeah.
would be a different
Well,
simulated
yeah.
reality.
Well, yeah. I was gonna say. Well, there's a lot of
Simulation
different.
reality versus simulated reality. It's
Well, I was gonna say if you're going with the video game theory, well, let's just say reincarnation, or yeah, let's just say the video game.
well, if you were going for like the Avatar state, we can look back at things like the story of, and again, I know sometimes touching base on religion it tends to get sketchy, but if we
Yeah.
look at the story of Christ, okay, let's say from an Avatar point, we look at the story of Christ. His mother gets visited by a random angel, quote unquote, just a spirit visits her, says, "Hey, go on and birth the Messiah." Okay,
Well, that's rape, but
what's that?
it's kind of rape. But,
No.
well, I mean, to have a baby and you didn't ask for it, whatever.
No. Okay, anyway, so Mary is visited by a spirit.
I had to put that in there. My bad.
And he
Kind
basically tells her to go on to birth the Messiah.
Without her approval.
Where we also know that Joseph was having visions and he was also being visited by spirits. And so you got to ask yourself, listening to this story, were these two avatared to meet each other? Because later on in the story, Christ becomes the Son of God. He goes through the same tribulations with the devil. He's walking around and the devil's got him doing all these different tasks. And again, you see an element of being avatared as well. The same story, well, the same set of circumstances. If you go into the story of Aaron and Moses, okay, spirit comes down, go to the Pharaoh, tell him to free my people. And we see the influence that these spirits and these lords have to avatar you. And yet, instead of going to the Pharaoh and swaying him and being avatared, instead they go to these two. They end up basically bringing the entire downfall of the town. The water becomes undrinkable. The air becomes unbreathable. They get the flies, the locusts. It turns into a nightmare. They end up going from a bad situation to a worse situation. So what you find in this simulated avataring is that the whole time these spirits could have used their influence to influence the Pharaoh to release the slaves. Instead, they played this entire game with Aaron and Moses, and they were being avatared. And I don't know if people take that into consideration, but if you look in there, it's very
and then
realistic.
Moses, he had the cheat codes to separate the water.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. So these spirits, they played him, but at the same time, that's if you read into that.
Well, it's speculation.
At the time, he probably had to wow these people. He was probably like, I need to keep these people.
Well, yeah, say that's the only way somebody's following you is if you create a miracle or something.
Exactly.
Crazy.
And then it goes right back to the being avatared, because the spirits would have had prior knowledge to this. If they knew how to bring, they knew how to pollute the water. They knew how to stop the fish. They knew how to bring the frogs. They knew how to bring the locusts and the flies. They knew how to do all that. So that means at one point, these spirits, exactly, the spirits come to him and they're like, look, at this time, show up at the Red Sea, which parts naturally, by the way, and part the Red Sea. And so Moses shows up and, he's just like,
I don't know. I mean, it might part naturally, but the way they made that, I mean, obviously that's a little bit more extreme when you watch movies and whatever else, but it was like
definitely
they all ran through and then he just like closed it on the soldiers that were following him. So it was like,
and it was definitely a timing thing is what it was. It opened and the spirits had timed it perfectly.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I don't think it was within seconds though. Like
no,
like they make it look like he just all of a sudden it separated and it was like, sitting there holding himself back. And then as soon as the soldiers went in, just closed it up. Like it could have been a lot different than the way, I mean, think about the game Telephone or whatever else. Any story from the past is, elaborated on just a little. So.
Well, yeah, and we see a lot of these same examples happening today. Again, though, the spiritual side of it, in which I touched base heavily on this, but the spiritual side of it that's again, we see that religion's being pushed out, and we're talking about the avataring of it. This is kind of one of those situations that you'd have to almost accept it, but yeah, it is very realistic.
Well, me and Believe in Steven had a long discussion about the spiritual stuff, and I know that he is a little bit more on that side of things because of his own personal experiences and whatnot. Maybe he'll tell you if he'd like to sometime. Again, if you want to request that, the lostinfopodcast@gmail.com. But I mean, you get into that and it's like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of things with rituals and spiritual realm because they've been doing it since the beginning of time, culture, civilizations, governments, especially people that probably shouldn't even be doing it. The elites out in the middle of the woods. I mean, obviously there's something there that we're missing.
Examples of it.
Yeah, there's plenty of examples of it. I just don't know to what extent is it all for spiritual and soul control and whatever else, or is that just one fraction of everything else going on? Is it ultimately lizarded people? Is it, I don't fucking know,
And
but
that's
that's what we're
another one
trying to
that we,
find out. But
yes, that's another one we hear a lot of, the lizard people. And that's another good question.
yeah, and the thing is, like, there's got to be something. Like, again, there's got to be something. I don't know that we'd say it's all true, but there's got to be something of, you know, somebody's came across these elite lizards, because obviously there's enough about them that has been talked about, that whether they're the ones controlling everything or whatever else, and they might be just a race of extraterrestrials that came to, I don't know.
Well, yeah, between the, what is it? It's the lizards and uh the the gray.
Well, the grays are like, so a lot of things that I find, like even when I did the KGB alien races book, whatever else, I think that the grays are basically like the workers for all these other, like, even more advanced races. I think there's a advanced race of grays, but the small ones, like, they're just like the little fucking, maybe biological robots or something. They just work for all the bigger races. Like the
Possible. It's
like the
possible.
Matri, they're fucking evil looking. I don't know if they were, I don't remember if they were considered a race of grays, but they're the ones that are supposedly working with the reptilians from Draco, and they're the ones doing all the crazy, crazy stuff. But it's yet to be determined. Who knows? Maybe, maybe we'll find that out, and maybe if not in this life, the next. But it definitely, like I said, I love this stuff, because once you start going down these things, there's definitely a story to be told. The lost information is there; it's lost, but it makes you keep looking. Once you've seen a lot of the stuff that you finally, like, all right, there's no denying something is here. It's just to what extent and whatever else. You got to keep going. You got to keep searching, and waking each other up and helping each other be more alert for these weird, crazy things. I mean, even in just basic conspiracies with our government and everything else, like, we have to be aware that this shit has been happening for a long time. Like, people are in control. People are doing dirty things to hurt other people for money and control. So whether it ultimately leads back to lizard people, whether it doesn't, maybe it's just a banking family. Maybe it's just, how, fuck, who knows? Maybe a eternal fucking vampire that just keeps coming back and creating a new army.
Possible.
Who knows? But it is something's happening, because you look at these things and they don't just happen by coincidence. That the Federal Reserve was created by these banking families that still existed, that were in all the crazy other shit in time. And then you find out the Federal Reserve, JFK trying to take it down, and then he passes a bill to do silverbacks dollars, and then he's killed. And the very first thing that's done by Lyndon Johnson's take back the silver dollar that was back to the American people. It's like, there's a reason.
Vicious cycle continues.
There's these things that happen that they're real. It's just like, yeah, they weren't found guilty, because if they did, our whole reality would be different, and they couldn't be found guilty. So yeah, you're not going to be able to find it in court documents and whatever else. Otherwise, it'd be different. But yeah, these secret organizations or whatever they're fucking doing for money and reasons is for a reason. Now, whether it's for a new world order, whether it's for just control, whether it's just so that human beings don't find out what they're really capable of, whether it's to save your soul, like, there's a lot of possibilities.
And that always boggles my mind, because that also goes into the simulated reality, this new world order. I have never understood this new world. What is this new?
Well,
world
and the
order?
thing is, they say that there. So I was listening to this. I listened to this, a lot of different perspectives on certain conspiracies and whatever else. So I just want to hear people talk about it on this show. They actually do them, but they're not conspiracy theorists themselves and whatever else. Which, all right, they're skeptics. But then they would talk about, like the Federal Reserve and the New World Order, and they like give it a 2 out of 10. And I'm like, I mean, I don't even know what more you need as far as controlling the money system, because they're putting a central bank in every country that they can.
You're seeing that a lot,
And that's really not conspiracy like that. That's an actual thing that's happening. All these economies run on these banking systems that are literally charging you interest out of nowhere and making tons of money on the backs of hardworking people.
as well. They're trying to eliminate.
And then they talk
Currency.
about New World Order. I mean, it's on the currency, for crying out loud. The fucking term on the back of the dollar is a New World Order, or One World Order, I think is what it actually means. And then they, Bush Senior, he talked about it. He had said, we're going to get a new world order and we will succeed. Like, I mean, presidents and elite people have talked about this already many times. So it's like, not sure where the conspiracy comes in when somebody's telling you flat out.
Aren't they talking about, because isn't that part of the conspiracy that they're going to turn it to a one world banking system?
Well, that's what they want. And then Bluebeam, kind of the one we went on, it kind of goes into all that. They want all of it. They want one belief system for religion. They want one government and one banking system. All of it is under their control and their power. And the whole world either goes with it or they, I don't know.
And they're slowly trying their hardest to weed out actual physical currency and everything to digital currency, which, if you really think about that, is problematic for basically the lower class.
Well, I thought of it like this: if I didn't think the world was so nefarious and evil for greed, I would say one world government, if it was for the right reasons, would be good, because then you wouldn't be leaving anybody out. It wouldn't be just America in the 80s doing fucking wonderful and everybody else starving. But I don't see that it ever being that way when you have that much control. Again, anybody with that much power is ultimately going to be corrupt.
Yes, they're gonna abuse it. And
humans have done it every fucking time. There's never been the good guy that is the most powerful.
You've seen it with Caesar, and it's gonna happen again.
It's not. Yeah, it just doesn't work. So the New World Order, one world government, it seems like a bad idea to me. In theory, it'd be great, because that would mean nobody be left behind. But our own government don't give a fuck about us. So it's like, put that on a massive scale. Like, yeah, everybody's getting left behind except for the people that believe in and work for them and do what they want. So
basically, if you have a couple million in your bank account, you might be utilized. Other than that, maybe not.
I was going to say, look at every billionaire we have now. Like, the only time that you're televised or even talked about is if you have some kind of
discrepancy
or some deal with these pharmaceuticals, banking, NASA, grants. Like,
we just made another million, or we just lost another million.
But if you're out there doing your own rogue program, I don't think that you'd exist. That's why, like everybody, I liked Elon Musk. And then really, I mean, if you think about it, he's the one that's got all of the funding from NASA and everything else. And it's like, he's not going to go against him, even if he says that he would. He won't. But anyway, so reincarnation, maybe it's just a reset, like you're just playing and all of a sudden, like, you start over and your character starts over, because
I've always been curious about that.
You got the hard reset, man.
That would be, honestly, that would be almost like at one point that's like, that'd be kind of cool. But on another level, it's like, that'd be terrifying.
Yeah. I was thinking about it. I'm like, it's kind of weird. Like, like just the hard reset, it froze up a little bit, and it's like, now you're all back into a new body and starting over. And then they had, if you think about it, the weird part in like reincarnation is that there was one guy that had said, I thought it was funny, because I was just like, well, I never thought about it like that. But it was like, what if the light at the end of the tunnel when you die is a new hospital room where you're going into the new body? That would be just, and then you remember, and the whole part of like why kids are so open to that veil and whatever else is because they have the memories of the past, and then they start fleeting as they get older, and then you're starting back all over again. I was like, well, that's fucking terrifying.
It's very terrifying.
Yeah, you're dying. You're like, I get to finally find out what this world's about, and I'm gonna go towards the light. All you're doing is going to the light of the new hospital room where you're coming out as a baby, starting all over again. That'd be horrible.
It would be horrible unless you had the perks of having the
if you got to keep the knowledge.
Yeah, the knowledge. If you could keep the knowledge.
Well, there was that kid that he had found his killer. So that was really crazy, because he had said, I know where the axe is buried and I know who it is. And then it was like a cold case.
Is that the child that was like, I died right over there? And I recall that.
And then, they went and caught the guy. And like by that time, there was DNA possibilities, and then they linked it to him, and like he caught his own murder. I'm like, that's fucking crazy.
Right. So whether that was divine intervention or reincarnation.
And again, that also leads into this whole weird world. Like, even that story is possible. Obviously, there's no way you would know that unless you knew it. Where it was buried, everything else. So, I mean, that just leaves you open for like, what the hell is going on here?
Unless he had a psychic ability that was beyond measure.
Or that. But so, again, I think the weird thing about this is that if you get into the simulation part of it, the mathematics and stuff like that is where it starts to look more like it's not just like, hey, I'm a creator. I want to create this planet here and do like a Bob Ross. I'm going to put a happy little tree over here. I'm gonna put some mountains over here. There's like there's a kind of code to it, because if you look into these numbers, the Fibonacci sequence, you know, for the roll, it's the spiral, whatever else. But I mean, that's what creates waves. They're not random. They are, but they're not. Like eventually they're not. It is calculated. Flowers, petals, all growth of everything that has curvature is all Fibonacci sequence. And honestly, if you go into, you can do a lot of documentaries on Netflix or wherever you want to go. Amazon Prime has a lot. Go into like the source code, number code, not source code, that was a movie, but like a number code system or whatever for the Earth and the Fibonacci sequence. And there was another one, I think it was called
Like a corrective code.
yeah, or the secret code or math code or something like that. But you'll see, you'll know if you come across it, pound search that. But it's just weird. It's like, how in the fuck? Because then you got pi, you have the golden ratio, all these numbers actually intertwine with our reality in even the craziest ways that you would think like this shouldn't be possible. And then this guy, he had fuck, I wanted to have him on too. I didn't write it down because I was actually going to try to get him on, but this guy wrote a couple books, but he kept seeing 1111. And so he started like really digging down, and then he found some math sequences that you can play along with him if you go on to his show or whatever else. I'm gonna have to find that for you guys. I apologize because now I feel like I should have said it.
Hamming code, was that what you were looking for?
No,
I was gonna say they wrote that as,
but this guy really came across some really crazy number sequences. Like, how the fuck is that even possible? And basically everything being broken down always comes back, 9 being the most powerful. But then again, you know, Nikola Tesla had said, once you figure out 3, 6, 9, then you have the information to the universe. Well, 9 being the most powerful number because everything kind of goes back to it in some weird way. And then this guy shows it, and you can put any number you want. And then like, you know, there was a calculator, which it was the gematria calculator. It's bizarre. You can put your name in there and like all these things and like terminology and then things that come back to numbers. And it's like, and that it's an old ancient calculator. And there was a couple versions. There's a Jewish one. There was an old Hebrew one. But either way, the calculator itself. And then there's the Bible code. There's a book that I read when I was younger. And it's like, the Bible's put together so meticulous that you can go and take out sequences, and it's like, all right, well then there's definitely something. And I don't know if maybe it's the programmer, which again, that's up to your interpretation, but your creator, your programmer isn't hiding clues for all of us, because it's like, this is too bizarre, man. Like, especially when you get into the mathematics of our reality, it's like,
our world is based off mathematics.
yeah, and that's the thing. But when you get into like stuff that you would think like, you know, random waves and clouds and like, other than if HARP creates them, but if you get into random stuff like that, it's just like it shouldn't be that calculated. It should just, you would think that it's just that random, but it's not. It really is that calculated in math, and there is a sequence and there is things, which means that to me, somebody programmed this on a whole nother level than just like, I want to create. It was, I created this systematically and way more intense than most people think. And then when you have Nikola Tesla talking about figure out the answer to 3, 6, and 9, and you'll figure out the universe. I mean, he obviously knew what the fuck he was talking about. And he's talking about this thing is way more programmed than just created. And that can still be a creator God that was just way more detailed and logical than we gave him credit for. It's like everybody's like, oh, he created the earth in 7 days and said, hey, let's make some animals, and just whipped it out. No, there was a blueprint or something that he actually went on. Like, there is mathematics that prove this is a way more systematic creation than just poof, be there. But that doesn't mean that, you know, it doesn't really take anything away. I think it gives him more credit. But I think that the thought of a guy in a chair just fucking waving around a wand and shit, making things happen,
just clicking a mouse,
yeah,
programming us as we go.
I was gonna say, I think it's a little bit more different. Maybe a mouse, maybe the only way this works is if it's mathematical. But I mean, even like when you have eclipses,
that's how I see it. That's why I see God. It's a molecule that started us.
Well, I was gonna say, even when you have the eclipses from the sun to the moon, like it shouldn't be the same diameter based on the distance and those size differences. Like the odds of that is insane. And then our moon acts different too. But I mean,
A lot of questions.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Well, again, it leads into all more conspiracies, or I wouldn't even say conspiracies, just leads to more questions. And then those get deemed as conspiracies because you're asking. And it's more like, don't ask.
Right, you're conspiring against the moon.
Yeah. Well, and the moon's always been crazy to me. I don't think that we should be able to see detail.
Wow, it is bizarre, is it not?
From 250,000 miles away, we can see details and craters with the naked eye. Like I don't know. I was just watching NASA just released
giant projection.
Yeah, so this was crazy. So it was actually just yesterday. I was looking at NASA released a 4K video of all the stuff that they had saw on Apollo 13, and now it hushes up all the naysayer conspiracy theorists. I'm like, that only gave. I watched it and I was like, well, how'd you turn these fucking 1969 cameras and footage into 4K? First of all, I mean, and then pass it as this is the highest quality. This is what it looks like now, like that, because you took fucking film from 50 years ago and then said it's 4K, and now it's provable. Like this is the reality. Like,
well, it's better.
You just gave more questions
now. So
I was like, you just gave more questions than you gave answers. Like that didn't prove nothing. I said, and I don't know. I'm not trying to disprove it, but I'm like, it looks fake as hell.
Right. They might as well go back and refake the moon landing again.
Well, even the dimensions, like when you're looking at this new footage that they have, and you're looking, it's showing like when they're basically when 13 was coming around the moon in the little pod or whatever else, it was completely dark until, the sun had a little bit of light to shine onto the side. Well, then you kind of start to see the curvature or whatever else based on the sunlight or based on the shadowing. And so as it's turning, I was like, even this, the moon looks way too fucking small, even being that close. Like if you're that close and that moon's that small, it shouldn't look like it does in our sky from 250,000 miles away. Like I was like, man, I don't know. You're actually making it worse.
But what's odd?
I suggest you watch it though.
But what's odd is that when we show our planet outside of, when they show the outside view of Earth, it looks very animated. I know that sounds crazy, but it looks very CGI. But every time they're showing, one is you can see the whole Earth looks very animated. Now there's another one where they pan out. So the Earth is circling here, but then the camera seems to scroll across at a wide angle, far lens like review, but that looks very realistic. So I don't know. Space is starting to turn into a thing.
Yeah, a thing.
I don't know what to call it. I really don't.
But I mean, like again, in the science part of this, I mean, you have general relativity, which is all of, let's just say in layman's terms, big things, gravity and whatever else, and how it relates into this world and big particles. And then you have like the quarks and the quantum realm, which obviously are all the small things that change all of our physical reality. And they have voids and dark energy and quarks and all this and that. And then in order to even kind of get an idea of what the fuck is going on, you have to merge the two. And that's pretty much impossible for us, other than this Higgs boson thing. I think that it was the very first time that they said they proved it. I'd still like to go even farther onto the Higgs boson. Like, because I don't know how you prove a particle from another realm or another dimension that's down in the quantum.
Let's assume we'll know it when it happens.
Or it did and it changed the reality. I'm not sure.
And I know you keep saying that, but it's just like,
but I mean, think about it. If we were talking about anything's infinite and realms and dimensions and whatever else, and all of a sudden you go and tamper with something in that realm,
I think there would be a large difference. Like there would be a major noticeable difference. Like,
I would agree. I would think that,
or streets appearing that weren't there, houses disappearing, but
I would think the same thing.
At the same time, you're right. Though. I mean, would we even remember that if they?
Yeah, I would think the same thing. But I mean, it's just like, in Ant-Man, he comes back and nobody knows that the time didn't last that long or whatever else, or didn't exist up here, but you spent 30 years in there. And like, and I would think that if you went and took something and brought it back and to try to prove the Big Bang, which supposedly created life, and then try to recreate that to find the Higgs boson, that you're creating new life, whether that be a new realm or whatever. I don't know. Those are all the things obviously are going to go way over my head as I can think about them, but I don't have an answer, obviously. I just think that if you went to these quantum realms and brought things back in a dimension it's not supposed to be in, there's going to be effects of a new reality, whether it's ours altered or us slipping like, off a cracker onto the next, like onto another reality, just on another plane. I don't know. But it seems like something would definitely be altered. I would think the same. I'd think it'd be bigger differences, but
Yeah, major differences in like noticeably kind.
yeah,
Maybe like you just
and
wake
that
up one day
that
to a
part
new
is hard to
species walking
explain.
around. Wake back up
Um,
to dinosaurs just roaming the earth again.
but that's another thing that they talk about in the science world I was looking at. Einstein was trying to take his general relativity theory and then and the quantum realm and merge the two for 30 years, and he never even got close. So, I mean, I don't know. And he was probably one of the smarter people that we've ever had on this planet, and he couldn't find a way to merge the two. So it's like, I don't know. It becomes like once you, and if you did, I mean, who knows? Who knows the possibilities? And honestly, I don't think, to me, there's like a lot of things that are possible. That, I mean, basically, I don't think anything's impossible. It's just to what extent or time or whatever that we consider lineal time. How long would it take us to figure it out? I don't know. String theory again comes into play in this. The vibration. So basically the whole thing on string theory, layman's terms, is that it's all on chords, and then basically they're on a vibration. And so if you ever seen the movie Interstellar, which is also in my top 5, he goes through the black hole, and then he's in that infinity world, the metaverse, whatever else, with all these strings, and basically he's trying to pluck those strings to change the reality for his daughter, so that she knows it's him talking to her from the future. And I mean, it's bizarre, and it makes you go down some rabbit holes in your own head. But that's basically what string theory is. I think it's probably one of the best. Christopher Nolan, by the way, one of the best producers there is. But what he was doing is basically taking the theory, string theory, and then making a visual product for people to be like, oh, I can see how that now, just because I can visualize it. Pretty good way of looking at things. But this James Gates, you can kind of search him. He's from MIT, and this James Gates, and I honestly don't know what he looks like, but I just read his stuff. But the one guy I was listening to said he looks just like the Rent's Too Damn High in the movie. I guess he looks just like that guy. I don't know, but he kept going on about it, so I was kind of curious to look it up for myself, which I'll have to. But he says that he actually sees computer code embedded in those strings. And it's basically the code becomes mathematic again. So even in string theory, now the way that he explained it, I think is misleading, because when I went farther, it's not like if you're a computer coder or like in the Matrix when Neo can see all the numbers coming down. It wasn't like that. It was a mathematical equation that broke down that there was a code within it. So it wasn't that he actually could see it. And that was the way that it's perceived when he wrote his article for the MIT, is that he can see code in our reality. Well, it was more that mathematics made mathematical code in reality. But either way, it was still an interesting concept. I suggest you look at that if you want to get really deep. There's a couple of other ones that you want to look up. Mirror matter was another one that I kind of went into, just basically put my toe in the shallow end. I was like, all right, this shit's bizarre. But in this mirror matter, it's basically a mirrored universe. And so the theory is, in this mirror matter, is that everything of dark energy in the quarks in the quantum realm is 5 times the size of our reality, but it mirrors everything that we have. So it interacts with us on a daily, but like basically, and it interacts in different ways. But so the dark energy comes through from this larger size universe that's our mirrored universe, and then it kind of like influences us in certain ways. And this Harold Levinson, and he was and his colleagues, actually, they did all this experiments together, said that this mirror matter, it might be more of a possibility than people think, because when comets come near the sun, or right before or after they pass the sun, that they disappear and then they become the core of this matter that actually comes to us. But before, it's a physical thing that we see coming out again, then it kind of goes away or disappears, but the core and the energy still are being hurled at us and then changing our reality in different ways. So it's kind of weird because it's, again, it's like, you know, you'd have to have, I think, a little bit more time in just that research to really kind of grasp what these people have spent their whole life studying. So like when they're talking and you know, yeah, or even what they're writing down, to go reread it many times is still like, what the fuck are they trying to say? Because it's like, you know, we've been taught in the simple education system that, you know, things can't interact that way, and whatever else. These people are doing studies and trying to find different ways, you know, that are obviously way different than we think. And so going into it, like I said, I only put my toe in the shallow end, and I was just like, it's pretty crazy. So visible light changes, just like on the double slit experiment. The electrons go back and change their perception of what they actually are and become a particle before you actually witnessed it, because you witnessed its path. So visible light, everything else the same kind of way. It's like, it's pretty deep, because then it's like, changes everything we really think about reality. Dr. Robert Foote, he says mere matter is invisible to us, but affects the known universe around it as if it were actual matter. And again, he's also spent a lot of time, and there's a lot to go in with him. Again, if you want to search him, pound search that guy, but he also believes in the mere matter, and I guess mirrored universe of ours that is basically all the stuff that we don't know.
It's possible though. I mean, it's not completely outlandish.
No, well, and the thing is, I mean, obviously there's enough people, I mean, that are pretty damn smart that are saying that there's something to it. So, and again, that,
So is he saying just like slight differences, or everything's the opposite, or?
well, basically he was saying that the known universe, like what we can see, and again, we're playing in this third dimension realm, material and everything else, and that we need proof that it exists. But we know there's whatever you want to call it, the in-between, the ether, the void, the dark energy. It's really not really calculatable. We don't know what it is, but we know it's there. It's what makes up the rest of the universe, but we can't do any studies or experiments on it. Well, that's basically what that mirror universe is everything interacting in this world that we can't calculate, but it interacts to where it actually is changing things as if it was physical matter. But it's the dark energy we can't calculate and account for. We just know it's there. And that was, I don't want to quote wrong, but I believe Einstein called it spooky particles.
Spooky particles.
Yeah, and that's like the quarks and whatever else. It's just things that you just really, there's really not a lot. That Nick Broadstrom, was it Broadstrom?
No, Nick.
Broadstrom?
I done forgot his name already.
Nick Broadstrom. All right, we'll just say that. You'll find him if you look up simulation theory. He was one of the first ones to put it into like the computer part. But he said there's three possibilities. Trilennia. There's the one is that humans will go extinct before we reach the simulation possibility, and so we won't even get there before that. The other one is that we're already in it, obviously, and we just don't know it. And then there was also one that when humans get to the point of simulation, by then that we've went so far in evolution, we won't care and not even try it and not even redo simulations for ancestors, which I think is kind of silly too. Because like if we got that smart and we could create a reality and go back and experience something to learn lessons, I think that would, you know, like even if you're a flight simulator, take for example, it's easier to go do that than wreck a fucking plane. You know what I mean? So I would think like if you could create simulations to go back, why wouldn't you? Just so you could have results without, you know, destroying everything.
Without corrupt information.
And then with that being said, that's maybe what we're going through. Who knows? But I'm just saying, like, it would make more sense that you have a simulation protocol so that you don't fuck everything up in reality. And then if you go into that, I mean, we can get into a lot of different things there, but basically you go into, let's just say the entertainment world, you go into the TV shows, Westworld, fucking crazy. I was, even in the beginning, I was like, I got sucked into that and I was just like, well, I'll spread my mind out pretty good because I was just like, pretty interesting concept. There's a lot of them actually. I think I have the entertainment ones down, but so if you want to check out some of the different possibilities of different kinds of simulation TV shows that are kind of are interesting to look at, maybe Westworld, Altered Carbon, Black Mirror. Those are all the TV shows that you might want to see. Movies. There's The Matrix, Player One, The 13th Floor, which is a really interesting movie. It's an older one. I like that one a lot. Source Code, Truman Show, which isn't really a simulation, but it's a simulation to him.
Well, that would go back into the Avatar simulation, kind of.
Yeah, it was just a different way of it.
So one of the many simulation theories.
Yeah, and then there was Lawnmower Man, which is an old one that goes way back too. Let's see what else. And then there's a lot of video games.
Terminator would have almost been a simulated. I mean, they kept going back and trying to change the past, kept going back, and it's just like there was clearly some.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say
Skynet ran everything.
Yeah,
Avatar state
stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is you can look at simulation a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to just be like
several different ways.
But even if we're living in like we were talking before, like if you're living in a video game, let's just because it's easy to use that kind of just a way to visualize. Well, let's just say you're the player, you know, unless you're the only player in that reality. And so that would mean that nothing's processing. That'd be meaning that everybody in your life, when you're not around them, is just not functioning and doing anything. And then when you come into their existence or their close reality, that they come back to life and they, you know, create your reality. And that one's pretty hard to believe because then it's
not only that, then it begs the question, which one of us is real? As well as the results that we would be getting back from the viewers technically don't even exist. And then fabricated numbers because it's
I think that
system.
that one's a little bit more. I mean, you kind of have to have the ego on your shoulder to even go down that road because I would even suggest like the non-player, whatever.
And it's PCs, playable characters, and NPCs.
Yeah,
non-playable
NPCs.
Characters.
Yeah, non-playable characters. I mean, even if you had technology, which we do in AI and whatever else, like AI is always learning. So even a computer program learns. So, I mean, eventually they would become smarter than, I don't know. And that's another argument we can probably have for another time. But I've seen some people in this reality that I'm like, that's an NPC, dude. It's right. Walking in circles and fucking doing the same damn thing and like, you know, screaming at a car going by. Like, okay, maybe that's an NPC, But anyway, I would think they would still learn too eventually, even if you're in a simulation. But I would say that the more likelihood, if you want to go in the video game analogy, I would say it's like online play. Like you're all in that thing together. You're all creating your own realities, but ultimately it can be shut off or controlled if you wanted to look at it that way, which is kind of dark, but I don't know. The more you look at things, the more you look at the way we've existed, kingdoms, empires, governments, religions, like there's definitely an overarching power of control. So I don't know if how that works, but or you know, again, like Player One, you know, or that what's that?
You know, I was just getting ready to look it up because I know you're thinking of the one with Little Franco in it. And
well, there's two. There's with the new one with Ryan Reynolds.
You're right.
There's a new one with Ryan Reynolds, and that one, like everybody knows they're in the simulation, but you still have to get your way up to get money. And
it's like what is it, Adam Project or something?
Yeah, I can't remember. I was thinking the Player One is where Ready Player One maybe is where they're all in poverty, and everybody would rather go into the virtual reality world because the poverty world sucks so bad. And then the one with Ryan Reynolds, the new one, is basically like it took him a while to figure out that he was in there, but then when he did, you know, then he started realizing, oh yeah, that's why all this crazy shit's happening in this world. But it wasn't any different because that's how you're in the world. It didn't seem crazy at that time, but then like when you're watching it, it's a fun movie. I liked it. It was interesting.
Right.
I went to the theater and saw that one. It was different. And Ryan Reynolds is great. Everybody loves him anyway. And he's fucking clever and witty and It was fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know that one with the little Franco in it.
Yeah, I think it's Ready
Franco.
Player One. I don't know if that's even Franco. I'm not
No,
sure.
it
Oh, that
was
might be the new one.
yeah. Ready Player One was something different. I
Yeah,
think.
that was the older one. Um,
Yeah, I took
but
it
anyway,
later.
so and this is the part that gets me is that and we'll finish it up on this because I got a lot to do. We're already past the time anyway. But
Nerve was the name of that movie.
so at the rate now with computers now, how fast we're advancing, which they say it doubles every time that we take another step forward. It even get faster and it doubles, and it gets faster and it doubles. So they said even at this rate, and I'll just be conservative and say that we would have the computing power in 300. Well, they say it could be 100 years, 200, just how fast we get there. But let's just say 1, 2, 300 years, we'd have the computing power to make a whole entire reality that we wouldn't even know the difference in this reality. And that's the computing power of being able to manipulate the perception, I guess, of touch, taste, smell, everything else. So textures, visuals, tasting. I mean, like,
How did the machine know that the chicken tasted like chicken?
yeah, well, it programmed you to know. But so in 1, 2, 300 years, we wouldn't even be able to know the difference. Meaning that we might be doing a simulation because we've already fucked our planet up a long time ago, or about to.
Like all the simulation theories always end with either what is it? What is world domination by aliens or robots or being thrown into a physical matrix, which would be an awful nightmare. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, essentially, well, again, I mean, if you think about it, just like in the flight simulator kind of thing, like in the Air Force or whatever else, like, it's a scenario because they're wanting you to get the worst case scenario in the simulation so that it doesn't happen in the real world. You don't want to kill a bunch of people on your plane. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if we were in a simulation, it is to test the worst case scenarios. And then it would kind of almost make sense because this world has definitely had, I don't know, we definitely have to think a different way and treat people a different way. And I don't know, even if it is a simulation, we just got to be better, man, because it's hard to watch people do what they do to other people. Even when you get into some of these topics, like some of the experiments from Nazi Germany and things like that, like it's
terrifying.
like,
Absolutely.
it's
terrifying.
like, man, MK Ultra. It's like, why would you want to do that to a human being?
Yeah, and then when people learn about this, it's their reaction to it. Of will they apply the method, or will they go against it and apply something better to teach people?
Yeah.
We do not do this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, and then you can just take it all kinds of different directions you want, but I mean, go missing kids, whatever else. Like, how in the hell do we go from, especially in the United States, we're supposed to have one of the best law enforcement in the world and everything else. And I mean, from 2016, which is in our current history, to 2020, it doubled the amount of kids. It's like 800,000 kids a year. It's like, that's fucking insane.
And now crime is just becoming more
But
heinous.
and it's not talked about. So it's like there's something going on. There's a problem there. Like there's a lot of things like we just need to focus more of our energy on to figuring out those scenarios and problems. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, and then I guess the one other thing I was going to finish on, well, there's a couple, but is I mean, you just look at the world that we're headed towards. Like they're already trying to force you into this simulation world with the metaverse, and like, here, get an avatar, fucking
a controlled world with a controlled aspect.
Yeah, it's like I mean, every bit of them is trying to force you into that world right now, and like it's not even really that visually entertaining. Like, I mean, even I don't know if it was Xbox or whatever that tried to do it years and years ago. Everybody's like, yeah, I mean, you can go talk to people as an avatar. It's like, whatever. And now they're still doing it, and it's still without.
Now you have what are those things on like the AR when you have FaceTime or whatever the hell it is, and you can put I mean, basically, yeah, that's what we're being.
Avatar, whatever, or filter, whatever.
Yeah, filters. I mean, that's basically we're playing characters these days, and that's really all it is.
I got mine. I'm just adding that's my hat and glasses, so that you guys in keeping you awake, Jake. That's my. I mean, he's a real avatar, but in the same thing,
and he recognizes it in the third person.
Yeah, what I do, because that's this guy. That's the podcast guy. That's all right, but that's my thing. And I do wear these hats normally, but I mean, I just don't. I'm not in every day, but like when I'm on vacation,
don't let him lie. I catch him at the store all the time, and
I do wear these hats a lot, but not like this one in particular. I have some nice ones that actually go with nice clothes too, believe it or not. But yeah, so then I mean, Elon Musk, he obviously, he's a smart mind, obviously, but he goes in talking about, we're in simulation. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he said it's 50-50 to him now, and he's, basically the space guy. So for him to say it's kind of weird too. And he said he just wants a better debate or whatever, that it's not a simulation. And I was gonna say, I mean, a lot of it is just like it's hard. Like when you start to even try to go one way or the other, it's like, I don't know, it's good arguments both. But it just becomes that, obviously we have a lot more research to do because there's a lot of untolds.
Have you experienced any glitches
Uh,
or anything that you might consider a glitch?
I've had some really weird deja vus that it's like I just don't know how it's possible. Like it's not like, oh, I might have seen that person before. Like it's like in mine, there's been, I won't say every time because I actually haven't had one in a long time. And there was a saying that when you went through deja vu, that you're in the right place at the right time. And I kind of like that saying, but there was ones in the past, they were like super long. It was like I knew what somebody was gonna say before they said it. Like everything was like literally playing out second by second, exactly how I remembered it. And I was like, well, it's not. This wasn't like a weird thing. Like I've been here before somehow. I don't know if it was in the other dimension or whatever it is.
It was just
Yeah, it was like a
lapse.
time travel. Like I've been here before. I know exactly what's gonna happen next. And so I don't know how to explain them, but they are bizarre.
Yeah, that's about as much as I've had is deja vu. Where if you get on YouTube and all that, you can see like cars crashing where they've edited out the other car that they smashed into, and they call that a glitch in the
Oh
matrix.
yeah.
But if you ever do see something like that, be sure to film it so we can.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen some stuff that I mean, obviously it's hard on like when you see videos and stuff like that because again,
well, the fake information
Yeah.
when you corrupt the data.
yeah, and I was gonna say there's a lot of that, and the thing is that's hard to believe. But I mean, I've seen ones where the planes are sitting still in the air, and there's a lot of different ones.
I've seen that. I've seen that at really close up angle to where it was from a front view, not a far view. So that's
Well, I was gonna say I've seen a lot of different ones, but I would say that what do they call them? But anyway, that is just an illusion. It's actually the way you're perceiving it, or the direction, or the traveling in a car.
They say that we don't know that.
We don't know that, but I mean, like there also is that. Like if you look at some of them weird pictures, like, and then you turn it sideways, and you're like, oh fuck.
We've had 747 just straight disappear out of the middle. Like
yeah. So I mean, well, there's the weird shit like that too. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think that there is glitches in the matrix, and like there's or whatever glitches in the system, and I think there's weird things that have happened because there's a lot of stories of weird things. I'd have to say that they're not all made up. But yeah, it would be better if people could actually capture it while it's happening and be able to prove that it happened that way. There's, the guy that basically climbed into the future. He was going under his cabinet, a guy from Russia, which I think we talked about on the time travel one, but he was a guy from Russia, and he basically climbed under his cabinet because he, trying to fix a water leak or something. He said that it kept going. So he just kept going. All of a sudden he popped out, and he was with his future self when he was old. And then they took a picture together on the cell phone, whatever else. They had the same tattoo. Obviously, it could be staged, but he's like, I have nothing to gain by the story. It's what happened. And I mean, he was on interviews, so he did gain something, I'm sure, at least fame. And his story's out there. But it was still a bizarre story. And he said, I mean, it's what happened. But he said he went and hung out with his future self, and then basically went back in the cabinet and came home. It was weird shit like that. I mean, I don't know. I can't say that it's not possible. And the one thing I don't want to ever do to anybody,
start experiencing something like that, please do contact us.
Yeah. lostsinfopodcast@gmail.com. One thing I don't want to do is I don't ever want to call anybody a liar, because I mean, I might on some stories be like, all right, well, you're definitely gonna have to back.
Controversial to say the least.
Yeah, you have to back that up some other way, because I don't know if I can buy into all of that. But I mean, hey, it's your story. But for me to buy into it completely, you'd have to give me more than that.
That's why the best, on-site experiences are the best. And, that's the downside of technology. It's like, oh, I recorded it. It's like, how much time did you spend on the editing?
Yeah.
Is this real? Is this not?
Well, and that's the thing is like I said, I don't want to call anybody a liar, but if you've had your experience, you've had your experience, and again, if you've had weird ones, chime in. If it's one that
we'll weigh in on it.
Yeah. we'll talk about it for sure. The Lost Info Podcast at gmail.com. But I think we're going to take a little different approach on the next case file, where we're going to lighten things up, maybe
Head down a different path.
a little bit of a different path. It'll still be fun. It'll still be exciting. If there's one that you really want, the Lost Info Podcast at gmail.com. But with that, I think that simulation, I gotta say, I'm gonna approve the theory. I'm gonna approve the theory only because it's got to stay a theory until it's proven. But I'm like, the mathematics and shit is weird, and they were even.
It's all there. I mean, the evidence.
Yeah, and there was another. Actually, just reminded me, there was another experiment that was done. They wanted to see if human DNA could be infected by literal computer virus, and it was. So
for the water, we store memory in the water in our bodies.
So there's
again, same set of circumstances.
Yeah, and pound search those ones up. There wasn't. That's another thing. I thought that experiment should have been talked about a lot more, but I never heard it.
His name too. The guy that did the water study and basically what you're talking about.
Yeah, but it's bizarre because it definitely makes you look at this reality like, okay, what the fuck is going on?
There's a lot of questions, and hopefully one day we get an answer for most of them.
But in the meantime, fellow seekers of knowledge, finders of info, we'll all search together. We're going to end this one. I got to get going here. So I hope you enjoyed Simulation 2. Meet us back here for the next one, and it'll be something a little bit of, like I said, different path, a little bit more lighthearted. All right. With that, I am keeping you awake, Jake.
Believe in Steven.
And we out. Peace.